Music.
Go Rosa. Go Rosa.
You know, I'm gonna ask y'all to drop poem, at least one. So get ready, a short one.
Jeez.
We wasn't ready for that.
You're poets, artists.
Oh shit. Okay.
Now I'm over here trying.
I gotta let me. Oh my god.
Come on, y'all are us. You know? How many times have
Yeah,
y'all
but
been, get on the stage, Rosa, say something right now? Okay.
Yeah, I guess let me think about this. Because you want something that's relevant, you know? Like you want something that hits. And I myself have been writing grants, not many poems. I've been on a grant writing tip. That's where all my writing is going. Not all, but
same here, friend. I just
All right. Here we go.
Okay.
Hey, peace family. This is Rosa. Thank everybody who's been watching all the segments. This is Disruptive Chaos, sponsored by Cooperation Jackson. I was like, what am I going to do for May Day if I can't be on the streets? And I was like, yeah, I'll interview 18 people in 7 hours. Why not? Because I love my people and they're dope and they're my comrades and they're my friends and they inspire me. And I'm tired. I'm tired all the time. Pero look, this is the Boricua Roundtable. So yeah, we're not going to have a whole session on Bad Bunny, but we will talk about that. We're not going to have, I love it, but there's a little bit more that we need to know about what's going on in Puerto Rico. But Bad Bunny, if you see this, come on now. You should maybe run for governor of the island or whatever, because thank you for the work that you're doing about our people. So with me is my two homies, my ride or die brother, Victorio Reyes, incredible organizer, activist, assistant professor. He's currently an assistant professor at the University of Tampa, Florida. You know why he took that? Because academia is so whack. That's the only offer he got. And I was like, Florida? Out of every state, it's Florida? Either way, what can I say? La Bruja, everything. Everything. I could go on for hours. What I mostly love about you, you have never been mean. You are always joyful. You tell people the truth, but you, like you said, you're an empath. And look, fam, if you don't know La Bruja, you've been missing out. Executive director of the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, completely renovating, renewing it. Like I already had told Tori and Taina, like the minute it reopens, we are up in there. I might write a poem. I don't know. Pero La Bruja's on the island. Está en Puerto Rico. And
that's right.
In Tampa, Florida. So I'm gonna start with La Bruja.
Jessica's also, she's gonna try to get on.
Yeah, she comes on, I'll see her and I'll add her to the stage. Okay. All right, so La Bruja está en Puerto Rico. Let the people know what's good, what's going on.
Pues en Boriquén estamos en Rio Grande right now. I'm here for a bunch of reasons, but tomorrow is Lemon Anderson's 50th birthday, and so he's doing a big reading at the Poets Passage. Shout out to Lady Lee and Flaco Navaja and Elizabeth Velasquez and Dr.
right?
Mahogany Brown, Dr. Mahogany Brown.
Oh, Dr. yeah. Poets Passage is so dope.
20 years they're celebrating, of it being in existence. And it really has been a home for me here on the island, that's for sure. But the other home that there was a New Eurekan cafe in Viejo San Juan that was founded and created by Juan Gra Fernandez, who recently passed away after a strong fight against cancer. And I'm going to always miss him and always think of salsa jamming and incorporating that more into my life, like it's part of my life, but because of him, we got to keep playing that salsa and not have no moment of silence, just salsa for him. And he created the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. It lasted for about 15 years. It didn't survive Hurricane Maria and then the pandemic. So then they went to New York City, and we were doing salsa Sundays at the New Yorican Poets Cafe, and it was beautiful times, you know. Pero sí, you know, keeping the culture alive as much as possible, and living it, feeling it, connecting with the land. I adopted 2 Chihuahuas. I'm doing good.
Right, and
Jessica's in here, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah. Oh, Jessica's there?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've been going back and forth. I mean, you've always been doing that as part of your life, but from your perspective, La Bruja, I feel like the energy has so completely changed in terms of more and more people, especially younger people, but more us in our generation now being like, wait a minute, this freedom might come. I mean, I always said, I don't think I'll see Puerto Rico be free in my lifetime. After Hurricane Maria, after getting Jose Joe out, even now with the governor who's like Republican, I'm like, that don't matter. Like, what has happened post Hurricane Maria is you have now an island that has a consciousness like, oh, not only could we be free, we're going back to farming, we're growing our food. You got La Feminista Colectiva, all the work they did to get Jose Joe out, but also fighting against patriarchy. You know, in the island, we got Maita Moreno Vega, who was supposed to retire, bought 2 buildings, and Luisa has transformed them. Lemon has been going there, Babito. I mean, like Jessica, Victoria, all of us. What I've said is this: the minute that dude threw paper towels, and the next day people were like, yeah, we don't need the United States. Like, I think that it had to take that moment for it to change. So,
but you know,
now,
but the patriarchy is wrong and strong, and it continues. Like the fact that we are even dealing with this administration in this way,
there's something. Are you hearing like clacking, or is it bracelets or something? Like a jingle jangle. You got bracelets?
That's my Chihuahua. I'm sorry. That's the Chihuahua playing.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Who, me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, La Bruja.
No, I knew that, and I maybe sound crazy for this, but the current governor, like proposing having a Trump statue and just like ignorant, crazy things like that. Like, I mean, we've been fighting this forever. We have a statue of Columbus that's the size of a building. It's insane, you know. Like, yeah, we're fighting it constantly, but what we have to just do is keep the spirit alive, no matter what it is that we're seeing. It's like living just in our reality, because that is what, you know, creates the difference. Like, you know, we do have the power to create our own worlds and our own spaces, and create these bubbles of positivity and creativity. That's what I love. I mean, I started on open mic at the New Yorican Post Cafe, and now, like, my whole life is dedicated to creating these spaces where people's true, authentic selves can, you know, be expressed. I live for that. That's where the revolution has always been. You know, I learned my revolutionary, you know, ideals from the poets and from those leaders before us. So, I don't know. You don't know. I'm using un pilón right now as my phone stand. That's mad Puerto Rican.
It's so Puerto Rican. All right. So Victorio, I mean, I know your thoughts about the presidency. I mean, even though you always disagree with me, and I told you this dude was coming back. And then I'm like, you're an anarchist. Like, how can you not believe that this is happening? But as a diasporic Boricua in Florida and coming back where you should be in Albany, New York, and being, you know, raised in such an incredible family, like, what are your thoughts right now for sure on the administration, and that where you've been to Puerto Rico post the hurricane as well?
Cool. So yes. Let's clarify this. So yes, both times I thought Trump was not going to win, and Rosa insisted he was. The first time I was shocked. The second time I wouldn't say I was shocked. I think the thing that we have to think about with what we saw coming, that he was going to expand his support among Latinos, right? Which is crazy, right? Because they literally in one breath say basically like, we hate Latinos, right? And then in the other breath, they're somehow convincing them that they should support Trump. So that's one. But we did see that coming already. I don't think they're the way, I think the way they won the election though was actually getting young people to support them at much higher rates. If you look at the exit polls, you see that young men specifically, but even young women moved slightly towards Trump, right? And so just like those numbers were supposed to be baked in as for the Democrats, right? And so, but the truth is that I know, because I have two young sons voting age, and they came up in the pandemic, became adults during the pandemic, were online all the time, and they were being exposed to that sort of misogynist manosphere, right? Now they had a supportive family who we could sort of talk things through, but they were being inundated with this information, right? And so they're really smart. My sons are very smart kids, and they were able to critically think through that information, but so many other people haven't. And so, I mean, I think that part of the reason we're confronting fascism the way we are currently is because some young people have been brought to the right in a way that we haven't seen in the United States in a very long time.
So Jessica, thank you so much for being with us. You know, as a Boricua radical feminist, as a professor, but you know, all the work you've done post Hurricane Maria, and really making sure that we all in the diaspora understand that a lot of the political wins that have happened have mostly happened because of a feminist collective, you know, and dealing, you know, with the patriarchy still and fighting.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about this moment as it regards Puerto Rico and the fight for, or the fight against patriarchy and the fight for independence?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm having a little bit of a fangirl moment because La Bruja is in the same like box as me. Oh my God. And I just want to say that former professor, your girl resigned, right?
You're like, I'm out.
I left. I said, take your tenure and shove it. Because ethics. I'm gonna just like answer this by suturing together what La Bruja and Victorio said, because I was thinking about I just was in a little bit of a back and forth with the publisher of my anthology about the cover image, and they wanted, you know, Boricua. It's an anthology on Puerto Rican feminisms that is wherever we are, right? So it's not just about Boricuas in Boriquen or here in the United States. And it just didn't like sit well with me. I just wasn't like satisfied with this single like protest image. And I wanted something that communicated the joy in resistance that is part of, for me, the Boricua experience, like the Puerto Rican experience. Like when we resist, there is joy to it. There is community to it. Sure, there's rage, there's all that stuff too, but it just felt like it wasn't expansive enough. And then we came across the problem of, you know, in terms of the image, if we put La Cole, right, they have a chapter in the anthology. If we put them on there, it's going to feel like the whole anthology is about them, right? But it's really about the diversity of Puerto Rican feminisms and all the different places and all the different ways we're working against empire. right, that were working for liberation. And so we ended up with an image of, the International Women's Day on March 8th. It's this gigantic bate, right? And so there's protest signs, there's singing and dancing, and it's like this beautiful image that I thought put together really represented sort of our collective work. And you mentioned, sort of my work with the diaspora and just sort of like trying to get people, especially since Hurricane Maria really activated me, because I was raised, you're Puerto Rican, but it was never like politicized, right?
Right. Yeah.
It was kind of just like, it is what it is. Of course, this is what we do. This is how we live. We don't do politics. And so I came into politics through what I would say, like, formally is like a white feminism, right? Through academia, these kinds of ways, and have been just like fighting that for years and years. And when Hurricane Maria happened, I just had this moment where it was like, damn, all these organizations that I volunteered for or like worked for, donated to, whatever, they don't even care. They don't care. And that's what kickstarted my like sort of focus on this and my desire to just bring folks together, because I recognize, born and raised in Boston, I didn't go to Puerto Rico until I was.
Bro, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm like born and raised in Boston, and you made.
Oh my God, you don't even know. I will say though, I am a Pabon Boston. I am a Boston Pabon, and my family is like holding the shit down there. Okay. But. I forgot what I was going to say. I don't know. I'm like, I still feel like I'm new to this. So my job, I feel like, has been a collector of people and a connector of people, right? And especially in academia, like I had the privilege, if you will, of traveling, doing research, right? Like that was my job. So I would take those opportunities to bring people together. And I, ever since the summer, Summer Rosselló, I've been like, pay attention to queer feminism. They are running it.
Yeah.
The Women's Studies Association is going there in November. And we have.
Yes, and we're all going to be there at the National Women's Studies Association in Puerto Rico. And thank you, Jessica, for letting me add on at the last minute, and also Victoria. We're going to be out there. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible.
I'm so excited. But like putting together resources with the Puerto Rican Feminisms group, it was like there are so many organizations that are doing so much work that it's I'm sorry, but like contiguous United States, it's shameful. It's shameful in comparison to the work and the movement and the building that's happening in Puerto Rico. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. And Tori, since you're in the classroom every day with students, I mean, obviously not all your students are Boricuas, but in general, the Latino students that are in your classes or your classes in general, what are you finding hard that they're struggling with? Basically what because I'm glad it was said that our children went through the pandemic and lost 2 years. And my daughter Alicia and Tori's sons, Albizu and Felix, same age. They grew up here in Albany, like 11 years together, and I didn't see that impact on my daughter. Like she was very much like, I don't like school, period. And then she's like, Mom, you taught me about the school industrial complex and all. I was like, yes. But for her, she was the opposite. I never had to wake her up. Every teacher would be like, oh, Alicia was in. There'd be times where it was like her and the teacher, right? And I was like, oh my God, your work ethic. But also it doesn't mean that she didn't miss out on things. And what I was realizing with the children in our lives, that if they're at this age, these are the children that never went to a club. They really didn't go to a movie theater. Like the things we did that ushered in our childhood stopped for them. So Tori, then the students now in college are straight coming from the pandemic and what went with them. So what are you seeing? Or what
Yeah,
are
all good points. I mean, I'll say a couple. One, most of my students are not Latino, right? Most of my students are white students, which is different from where I came from at the University of Albany, where most of my students were Black and brown, Latino, most of them. So different experience. But that said, my Boricua students I have, which is a small group, but mighty. They tell me, and I'm just getting this from them, is that among their age group, Puerto Ricans from the island. Now I'm not talking about, these are not stateside Puerto Ricans. These are Puerto Ricans who live on the island, go to school at Tampa. They say that young people in their age demographic are mostly pro-independence overwhelmingly. So that's what they're saying, which is, I hope that's true. That's good to hear. If so, at least it clearly is in their sort of peer groups. But and at the same time here stateside, though, we do have a lot of, young Latinos and some Puerto Ricans in that group who are like supporting Trump, right? I have family members who are, in that, so like it's interesting. So that's just in general, right? As far as students specifically, we have a generation of students who don't read. And, that's kind of unfathomable to us because obviously, even a sort of lackadaisical student had to read something in order to get a college degree. Nowadays, a lot of students don't read and they have very little endurance for reading. And I'm not a traditionalist. I'm not one of these people that, people are like, oh, the comic books are going to ruin the youth. You know what I mean? Like that, like people have always done that historically, right? And so I feel like it's easy to hate on the young people. Like, oh, you're just on social media too much. You're just this. But for what it is, better or worse, young people do not read at the same levels. Now, obviously, there's exceptions, but as a whole. And so you'll have students who, when you ask them to read something that's, 20 pages, like that feels like a lot. So that's, what would that be like for us if we hadn't read? Like
we wouldn't be here, all of us.
Right, exactly. The books we read were kind of the things that made us who we are, right? And so it's a whole generation of people.
To me, it sounds crazy because I know we've all done this. All the conferences we ever go to, I always came back with books. I was like, 10 books from this conference, or like, but it speaks to their lack of attention span. But we also have to, and I think we know this, but the larger community has to have some grace for an entire generation whose cortisol levels were turned on with this flashy 2-3 minute thing. And if you really look at what all the giants of tech and how they forbade their own children to even be or use a phone that they created. Now we have, I think, in this country, this thing about anti-intellectualism. Right? Like when we were at events coming up, and I hate that because I know when we were 25 and somebody older was like, so back in the day, I'm not saying back in the day, I'm saying when we were growing up, we had to be schooled. There had to be a moment where we were like, wait, I don't know everything. And it also requires a humility and a respect for elders. And I think the crisis in this country of just the inhumanness of this administration is making also young people just hard and cold. Either they're going to be hard or they're going to be non-empathetic, that they don't even know how to debate. They don't, also like a lot of them also don't write. Like they weren't taught to write. I just realized that the other day. I was like, oh my God, we never taught these children to write like your script and your tests and all of those kind of things. No. So that anti-intellectualism is what we're fighting. And of course, now the crackdown on college campuses, that's going to have major ramifications, like, and obviously then Florida and the laws. What should we be doing with young people? What is the way we pivot? Bruja, I want you, yeah.
I just want to jump in and say, and K through 12. It's not just universities,
yeah.
right? Like they're shutting down any kind of anti-American sentiment for the littles also.
And
right?
that's the Department of Education. Like, I think most folks thought the Department of Education was like colleges and universities and student loans. This is a gut axe to public education, which they've already been destroying. And most of public education at this point is not even teaching young people the new skills, right? Like, you're still dealing with a 1980s mentality. This is 2025. But Hola Bruja, like, and you know, because you also are always around like young people. What is the vibe that you're getting from them? And also, your children are still in kind of this category of young adults, right?
Well, yeah, they are. I mean, they're working. They're not in the school system at all. But what I was thinking is, what I've noticed, the arts are taken out of the schools. Arts are taken out of the schools. I remember when I was a kid, we had instruments. We had a school play every year. Like those were the ways that, because not everyone learns the same. So you take that out, and then militarize the schools. Then you have, you know, it's treated like a prison for the most part, and their individual gifts are not, you know, sought out, developed, and encouraged. So all of that is systemic. And so for us to think that we're going to create change using their systems, I think that's where we go wrong. That's our problem. You know, the government system, the education system, these are all patriarchally created, right? So creating our own safe spaces, teaching our own living a life that counter or everything that is, we're not. And live that path and be spiritual and, you know, really connect to all of those methods that our ancestors used, that we were stripped of, that were villainized, demonized, labeled in these ways, so that we could become afraid of our own power, of our own people, and then sit and hate ourselves. And so a lot of people have bought into that, right? So by shaming and saying all, you know, horrible things about our culture, our people, throwing the paper towels, calling us trash. I mean, all of those things, making it a joke, that becomes, you know, the way that they normalize that type of rhetoric. Even bringing back West Side Story, like and God bless everybody that won and everything. I'm not taking away from the work that was done of my peers, my friends that was in there. I respect their work, but that it was Spielberg, that it was at a time after Hurricane Maria.
Yeah.
Also introducing that racist rhetoric against Puerto Ricans again. It was just like bringing it back to life. It wasn't.
I mean, the thing, like, look, I don't care who was in it. Y'all were all wrong. Like, all right, an Afro-Latina woman won the Oscar for it. But you know what? Like, what I talk about a lot around Afro-Latinx, Black Latinx identity is, I don't care how dark you are. You could be a Black Puerto Rican who voted for Trump. I ain't rolling with you. Just like you could be a mad light-skinned Boricua that is not rolling with Trump. Then I'm coming with you. I mean, there's a thing definitely about our racial and our ethnic and our indigeneity and Africanness, you know, but you can't just think that just because someone labels themselves Black, they can be anti-Black, i.e. Clarence Thomas. Like, come on, y'all. You know, like, you gotta have deeper conversations on this. But look, the fact that West Side Story the second time makes it that we've only had 4 major films, including West Side Story and the redo. The other one would be I Like It Like That, the best freaking movie ever. and how it talked about Puerto Ricans, but also like that movie is about 15 or 20 years old, and one of the main characters is queer in the movie. You know, like it reminded me of in that thing, like, you know, where everybody knows in our like traditions in our households how we celebrate. Everybody knows that someone in that room is gay, you know, LGBTQIA. But what we were taught is we don't talk about it. I'm like, but you not talking about it, I now have to think how many of my cousins were erased. That's everybody knew. Or how, like, one day my mom's like, oh, one of my uncles, well, you know, they've been together for a while. I'm like, Mom, nobody's roommates for 30 years. They were gay. Okay, like it's fine. And I know we're doing better. I know this new generation is doing better, but you're right. And obviously the other travesty in the Heights. Like, to this day, we as Boricuas don't have support for telling our stories. I do believe that I think one of the things is, much like African Americans, we as Puerto Ricans are considered United States citizens. So when you have all these people during the Republican convention and that dude at Madison Square Garden, that said what he said about Puerto Rico, you know, I'm like, we kind of always fall into the cracks when we're talking about the larger community, and we have a similar though experience with our African American brothers and sisters. So La Bruja, well, let me go to Jessica. So Jessica, I mean, I know you're not teaching. What's something maybe in Puerto Rico that is growing that we don't know about and might need to like support?
I don't know if I can fully answer that question. I think I'm more positioned because, you know, I'm not there. I'm talking to people who are there. I'm studying people who are there, but I'm not like physically there. For me, it's all about, I'm keeping my eye on the queer Black feminist activism in Puerto Rico. And so I follow whoever I can to keep my eye on that and try to keep my connections there. But I just want to, if it's okay, I want to circle back to your question about what do we do? Because I resigned from my teaching position, that was a lot of where my activism came in, you know, talking about West Side Story. Did any of y'all see that spoof? There was like a group of artists who, you can find it on YouTube. I'll send it to you if you're interested, where they were making fun of the fact that, right, that they were remaking West Side Story, and they just called it all out, but they turned it into like a mini play. It was beautiful. That's how I teach my students, right? I'm not teaching them West Side Story. I'm teaching them the spoof and bringing them in that way. So then we can talk about, various things. And so now that I don't have that space, the question of, you know, what do we do when these institutions don't want what we're offering? Right, which is ultimately what made me resign. We have a long history of educating, each one teach one, outside of institutions, and we need to like pump that up. So I saw on Blue Sky, a professor at Columbia had one of her, I think it was like a media studies course. They canceled it, and so she put it on Substack, sold out. 500 people, wait list only, you know, it's not free, which, you know, would be a different project, but it is a model. Like there's a way we can do the teaching and get these kids involved. And you're right, they're not reading, but audiobooks. I've been having good luck with making them listen to things, podcasts, audiobooks, to give them to know that these, like, it's good that we made inroads in these institutions in a particular way, but at the end of the day, they weren't built for us. So when, right?
And I mean, look at now. I mean, academia is crumbling. It's like, you know,
I'm not going down with that ship.
I know, Columbia capitulates, then Harvard pretends it's doing something right. His president's like, we're not doing these things. The next day, he gets rid of the DEI department and then changes the name. And also, they have weaponized DEI. I'm like, I don't even want to say that word. Can we just say that Black and brown people, once again, are under attack in academia? that less than 0.5% of us as Latino women have the opportunity to get their PhDs. Like getting a PhD is not just the time, it's having a fight for your voice to be heard. And at one point, I know that folks are just like, F it, I'm gonna write whatever, which is like everybody says, a good dissertation is when it's done. But what is going on in academia, and the pushback, and I'll say this every single time, like for people who are in and are professors, but also the artists that were on speaking tours, all of that. I mean, how many people do we know haven't had a paid speaking gig in that? And then how they're weaponizing DEI, and it's very deeper than a lot of people think. So, Tori, you're there. You're in the midst of it, like that analysis of academia and something that, speak to that.
Well, I think it's important to know that there's a particular individual. His name is Christopher Rufo. He's a right-wing activist. I know a little bit about his back history. I think he was an intern at NPR or something like that. And he got really disenchanted with what he called wokeism. And so he's the person almost exclusively responsible. If you look back and see, he's almost exclusively responsible for the way in which because you got to remember, obviously he's not responsible in the sense of it's the people with power who are making these decisions, but they didn't even used to know what critical race theory was.
Right.
When people had
still don't know.
Right, no, they still don't, correct, but they didn't even know that those were words to say, right? And so that's what his program has been. He's been very clear about it. And specifically then what he's explicitly said this right on I'll just call it Twitter because I don't want to call it by its new name, but he even said during the Palestine Israel protests that their particular objective was to pit the center left against the far left, right? And so specifically getting administrations to look at the far left as the problem, right? Because universities in general are run by people who are center left. In general, they have some support for concepts like diversity and stuff like that, but they don't usually support radical politics at all, right? And so get them to focus this way as opposed to this way, right? And that's what we've seen in a large part. We've seen a lot of universities basically capitulate from jump or before, even in advance. And the thing is the part that's most dangerous is that we've already seen how this plays out. We've seen this throughout history. We know what it means. We knew what it meant in Chile, right, when they came for the professors.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do. And they're saying it in explicit terms. The other day, J.D. Vance said, the professors are our enemy, right? And so, like, when that's the type of language that's being sort of thrown around, we understand the stakes of what we're dealing with. And it's serious. It's And
it's not just a regular thing or an elite school thing, right?
No, but I mean, that's fascism, because that's where we're at, right? That's complete. It's not hyperbolic anymore to say it. They come for the teachers and professors. They start with erasing history, teachers and professors, and then the artists next, right? And La Bruja, you are the executive director of the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. Y'all saved it, and now it's going through renovation and all of that. But as an artist, what is, I don't want to say what's the responsibility of an artist. Like, what do you foresee happening, once the cafe is open, and you as an artist, like, your thoughts on just the continuing clampdown?
Well, I feel like during the pandemic one for experiencing right now, that's where
you're going in and out, so you might need to move a little closer to the mic. Yeah, just
everything is going
perfect.
Everybody would have changed outside right now. Like, what the heck? What was I saying?
You were saying the pandemic.
The pandemic was the phase one, like, right? That happened during the Trump administration. That's when a lot of the money was transferred. They had everybody on lockdown. We couldn't fight it or control it, and billionaires turned trillionaires, and then they're using all of that funding for military, right? For and so this time around, I'm like, what's it gonna be? If we experience that, we normalize that, then it's like in this phase, you know, we are well into it is fascism. Like we're experiencing it. Can we trust the government system now? Can we trust, like, even after Hurricane Maria, people lost their pensions. Like, if you don't start taking out your money from the bank, don't be trusting these banks. Take out some money. Take out like a stash for yourself, whatever you can. You know, use it to pay your bills. Because if the system goes down, then what? You know.
Yep.
And it's gonna collapse.
And will money even be that currency when things, right? So like, keep your gold. You know, you have to, that's why it's important to start learning about the land and learning how to live off the land, plant, do all of these things. Like I was thinking about this. I was in a documentary called Hip Hop Hope back when 9/11 happened, the effects of 9/11 on hip hop. And I was talking about it back then. And we're seeing this, like now we're living into this, like, what is really gold? Water, clean water. So then what happened? Then they poison the waters. It's just a battle against.
And I think I also, with the administration, the chaotic nature is what they want. The veracity of the speed of pushing what they want. Now knowing that Trump has immunity for all past and present, like why wouldn't he just do anything? In fact, my guest before, one of the sisters, Dara Baldwin, is in DC, and she's a disability justice person, and she also is part of making DC pushing to make it a state. She was saying that Trump is about to, and when I tell you who she's deep in the trenches of the federal government. So every hour she'll be like, this is what's happening. So anyway, she was saying that Trump, on his birthday, June 14th, is going to have the entire military apparatus in the streets marching, right? We talk, and if we were to go tell people we know about this, they might say, well, that's illegal. And our answer is no shit. Everything, like, stop talking about the courts is going to take care of it. They're removing and arresting judges. Stop talking about the law. Stop talking about the constitutional crisis. There's been a crisis since they wrote us out of the Constitution. Like, we have to step up and be very clear right now. And I kind of feel like, Tori, I don't know, I kind of feel like people are still like, that's not going to happen. But I do know with the incoming recession, the inflation, what's happening on the island in Puerto Rico, dire straits of poverty, and then obviously the tech bros trying to take our land, and obviously the people keep pushing back, and we'll keep pushing back. But look, there's going to be the confluence of all of that coming together, and once people don't start getting their Social Security checks,
that's right.
Right. And now you're seeing people who voted for him running up on their Republican congressperson. And I know people will say, well, that's what they get. No, for me, I'm still a human being. It's not what they get. It's that what is happening is going to impact all of us. Right. Mm-hmm. So you have all of this, and then you're breaking down Social Security. I don't know. I think this summer might be that summer. I don't know, Tori. I don't know what you know, but I think
follow the
it takes so much.
Yeah, but Bruja, I want to say
we don't know, right? It could happen any day, right? Any day it could happen. So what we can do is just living our lives every day in authentic connection to ancestral ways and food justice, all of these things that that would keep us alive. And I think back to the Columbus's logs and how he described the indigenous people of this land. And that's when you're saying, I've never seen you be mean, Bruja. I think of that. Like, I am genuinely a happy person. I am genuinely a giving person, but I also have a warrior in me, and I have to bring that warrior out. I don't want to, but for the most part, I'm naturally a person that I love people. I really do. Even though I hate this world, but I love people. I hate what we do, but I love us. It's just like, but I, like I said, I think back to the way that our people were described in those journals, and I try to live my life like that.
Yeah. Well, Jessica, I'm going to give you the last word in this regard, because we're going to close out with Victorio doing a little poem for us, as well as La Bruja to keep.
Gonna miss it.
No, you can stay on. They're going to do it now. I'm just saying you got the last word while they are picking their poem.
Oh, pick the poem. Oh my God, I got the last word. No pressure. I just think like everything we talked about goes right back to the stuff about the sort of the next generation, and your question about, activism on the archipelago. And I'm just thinking that perhaps one of the reasons that these feminist organizations are having success fighting against internal heteropatriarchy, right? That's part of, living in Puerto Rico, like as part of living anywhere on this planet, right? But also external fighting against empires, because they're inclusive, because they know they're smart, they know how to use social media, they know how to create, right? Things that are in clips, like, I mean, from puppets to posters, there's education in there that's not tied to any institution. And I think that that's like, we need more of that. Because I mean, there's only so much you can do when you're tied to an institution, in my opinion, and that's just like where I'm at right now. And maybe that's what I'm telling myself now that I've left academia. But yeah, I mean, I think for a long time, activists in the contiguous United States should have been looking to Puerto Rico for examples. And so that's how I'll end. Like, let's keep our eye on the archipelago and what's going on there, because maybe the reason we know it's going to happen, the reason we know Trump is just doing what he wants, it doesn't matter if it's legal or not, is because we're Puerto Rican and because we're educated on our history, right? So I'm not part of the, like, it would never happen here. I'm like, it's been happening here.
Yeah, and I think if people who are watching, around, maybe you have a surface knowledge of Puerto Rico, but I know what is never talked about. I think we have to be not never talked about, but as I'm calling it in my dissertation, the Puerto Rican radical tradition.
Yeah. Yes.
There's a reason they murdered activists, and there's a reason they put out Bisu Campos,
Right.
in a prison cell. There's a reason they killed Filiberto 30 years in hiding. There's a reason we protested and got the Navy out of Vieques. There's a reason Jose Joe came out. Look, because I really do think that a lot of our people are always in the pathology of the ay bendito, like, what happens? We still go on. Absolutely. But I think there has been a purposeful erasure of our radical tradition.
Sure.
We don't fit demographically into the, quote, larger Latinx community, and our relationship with African Americans. We're both American citizens that are treated as second class. We are people who should be allowed to vote. You can't vote on the island. I understand why then they attack the young lords and los machateros and how, so Tori, I know you want to.
I just have to go. I have to go get my son. So it's.
I know. Yeah, we're wrapping up, but thank you. I appreciate you being here.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah. Okay, so Tori La Bruja, let's get some poems. Close it out.
I'm gonna read this poem. It's in honor of the Pilon, which we brought up earlier. There's a poet. Her name is Araceli Hermay. She is an Eritrean Puerto Rican poet, and she has a poem called "Love Poem for a Pilon." And I wrote a poem about her poem called "Love Poem for a Poem About a Pilon" for Araceli Hermay. I thank God for Santurce, Barrio Obrero specifically. I thank God for El Sábalo, La Laguna, tiny houses with tin roofs. I thank God for loud roosters with one eye and goats and horses. I thank God for aunts, great aunts, and great great aunts. I thank God for leathery skin and guayaberas. I thank God for Bayamon, Reparto Valencia specifically. I thank God for Guaguas Públicos. I thank God for gold Lazaruses so large they make my whole family religious, as Big Pun would say. I especially thank St. Peter for canepas and arroz con habichuelas. I thank La Virgen Maria for bullhorns mounted on rooftops advertising produce. I thank Obatala for long, skinny, windy roads through the mountains. And I suppose I can thank Ogun for the Doritos truck that almost ran me off the road once. I thank Grandma Luz for the little brown suit and yellow shirt she sewed for me when I was 6. Seamstress, tiny hands, mocha skin, large veins, white dress. I thank Elegua for opening doors, for empanadillas, for piñones. I thank no deity in particular for Ponce, San Antonio specifically, for Parque de Bombas, for helados, for the 100-foot tall cross imposing itself over the skyline staring down the Caribbean Ocean. Actually, I'm not really thankful for the cross at all, nor am I thankful for the imposition of colonial forces on the island of Puerto Rico. I am thankful for reggaeton most of the time, but more than anything, I'm thankful for poems that show love for the Pilon, for poems that tell the story of the concrete block and rebar compelled to dance by Celia Cruz and Hector Lavoe to the sizzling of onions and ají dulces. And I am thankful for salsa and mofongo. I am, however, not thankful for sand fleas.
As always. Take it away, La Bruja.
Yo, them sand fleas, bro. Hard way about the sand fleas. This, I've never read this out loud. This is in a journal because I can't access my poetry. I'm not getting signal on my laptop. So this is totally in alignment with what it is we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to share this. This is exclusively for you.
Thank you.
This war is a hollow cause because dying as Palestinians isn't a Holocaust. Nah, that's reserved for white Europeans. Brown people aren't human beings. Temporary ceasefire won't make the horror pause. Children pay the ultimate price, but it's a father's cost, a mother's loss, a coin that was tossed, 2 faces of death. Either way, the hairs crossed. Aiming at babies playing and families praying, bombs dropped across fields, uneven plain, concrete crushes away the pain because everything that's normal is insane. A scattered brain once meant aloof, now it's a murdered youth, and no one bats an eye at this traumatic truth. What are empaths to do but look at each other like, do you feel that shit too?
Yeah, we got Bruja original right off the press.
I was like, that's an original.
Yeah.
And my mom might be watching because she loves La Bruja, like loves her. Both of you, I love you. La Bruja, tell the people, I said, what's up, give Lemon a happy 50th from me. I know we're gonna see each other soon. Homie, I'll see you when you get back home to Albany. And I really appreciate both of you being with me, but also being those folks that, like, the reason I said that La Bruja is not a mean person, because she's not. Like she said, she's a warrior, but it's always like when we connect, it's something that I was like, I need to talk to La Bruja right now, or to you too. And I think that, folks should remember through all of these that we are family and we're in community, and we also will lift each other up when necessary. So Like the
Love.
young lady said, pa'lante siempre pa'lante. I love y'all. I'll see you soon.
Thank
Sí.
you.
Thank
Love
you.
to both of you.
Igualmente. Pa'lante.